All right. So I want to thank the board for inviting me here this evening to give a presentation on the open space and recreation plan. Teaneck Township is considering the open space and recreation plan as an element of the master plan. Next slide, please. Okay, great. Okay, so this is actually, the plan was completed in 2019. It had extensive public input in 2019. We had a series of public meetings. We had one public meeting that was standing room only, which was exciting. People had a lot to say. And I presented the plan in its final form to the Township Council in July, on July 9th, 2019, and to the Planning Board on July 18th, 2019. At that time, the town took no action on the open space and recreation plan. Since that time, this past year, the township has reviewed, updated, and adopted a new recreation and open space inventory. And I was asked to amend the open space and recreation plan. The only amendment is the inclusion of the new recreation and open space inventory. Otherwise, the plan is exactly as it was written in 2019. Next slide, please. Okay, so why are you doing this? So New Jersey has a program through the Green Acres program for land acquisition. There's public funding available to finance land acquisition. If you have an open space trust fund and you have an open space and recreation plan that's current within 10 years, you'll qualify for the planning incentive program. And what's the benefit for Teaneck if you qualify for this program? The state has two programs for land acquisition by municipalities. You can do the project specific. So if I, Mrs. Davis, own land in the township of Teaneck and you wanted to purchase it and I agreed to sell it to you, you could apply to the state for funding. You would receive about a 25% grant. It would be specific to my property and the application is lengthy. It's about 60 pages and it's difficult and expensive to fill out. You get your financing from Green Acres at that 25% level. You come back to me and I say, really sorry. Changed my mind. So not only did you lose the funding, you lost the property, you have to give the money back to the state. The advantage of the planning incentive program is that if you have an open space and recreation plan that's been approved by the state of New Jersey, you can apply for any property that qualifies that's consistent with the open space and recreation plan. So if I change my mind, you can then transfer that money to someone else's property who's willing to sell. And you get a 50% grant. And I would bet that Teaneck is an environmental justice community, so you would get a bonus on top of that. And your application is a plan. So no longer do you have a 60-page application. You submit the plan to Green Acres, and when you go to acquire a piece of property, it's like any other real estate transaction. You do an appraisal, a survey, title work, done. Much easier, much better way to go. Okay, so Teaneck's open space and recreation plan is dated 2019. How do you rectify that, right? All of your public input was from 2018 and 2019. So I contacted the state. They have a new planner at Green Acres and asked that question. If you just have the public meeting this evening and you adopt the plan this evening, the plan will qualify you for 5 years. But if you have a second public meeting and you invite the public, notify the public, give the public the opportunity to speak, Green Acres will approve it for 10 years. And that's a huge difference. So my understanding is that the planning board is going to do just that. And that next week you will have a second public meeting where you will formally adopt it and you'll open it to the public. So tonight, after my presentation, I ask that you ask questions of me, open it up to the public so that they can ask their questions as well. Next slide. So the benefits of open space, I added this slide from the original presentation in 2019 because I thought it helped Teaneck. Teaneck is probably the only town where I've written an open space and recreation plan that didn't adopt it upon review by the planning board. So there has to be something that's holding the municipality back. And it's helpful to understand what the benefits are. And I would harbor a guess in the intervening 5 years, those benefits become even more critical. And I'm very glad to know that the chair of the MOST committee is here this evening along with members of the MOST committee. So it's helpful for them to hear this as well. With climate change and the effects of the heat island effect, and Teaneck, you were right in the Meadowlands, had fires last summer. I'm sure you remember, and that's all due to the dry conditions. And then of course you have the extreme flood conditions. The Hackensack River is tidal, so you have those impacts as well. So the benefits are open space as they look to normalize those conditions. And that's important. Teaneck is a really cool community. And it really is. You have an excellent park system. And you're home to Overpeck Park, which is a really large county park. You have Teaneck Creek Conservancy, which is really at the top, I would say, of kind of at the forefront of the environmental first land trust that I went to, where they had an art and poem walk. And it's a neat land trust. Next slide. So